Alright, for day 5 of the sweat program, we're going to have a warm-up of front raises and some band pull-aparts. For the front raises, it's best to grab just one dumbbell. We can do it with one dumbbell in each hand, but given that we're only doing it just for warm-up, we want to keep it that little bit lighter and easier, nice and quick to get through some rounds and not worrying too much about the loading. So just grab one dumbbell in each hand. Dumbbell's just going to sit in front. Elbows are soft, so they're not fully locked out, but the arms are generally straight. We don't want to have too much of a bend in them. And we're just lifting up. Usually when we're doing front raises, we probably come to shoulder height or slightly above. So that's where we want to kind of get up to with these. Because we're doing them light and for the warm-up, if you want, you can kind of bring them a little bit just up overhead, similar like the kind of plate raises that we would do from time to time, just to get that little bit more range and motion in the shoulders. As I say, generally if we're doing them with a heavier load, we'll probably just come to shoulder height. But for the warm-up, if you want to bring it right up overhead, you can do. Band pull-aparts. You're going to want to use the yellow band at least. There is some lighter band options available as well if that's still too much. They're usually living down on the racks as you come in beside the kind of dumbbell rack behind the vending machine. But just ask one of the coaches and they can kind of grab it for you from there. The hands want to be a little bit wider and shoulder apart and tension on the band at all times, so it's not loose in the middle. From there, we're going to open down to the chest and back in. The hands don't need to be kind of too turned out or stay perfectly straight. They can rotate a little bit as you pull, whatever feels comfortable. For the shoulders, and as you pull back, we want to keep the shoulders low and open. We don't want them to shrug up and kind of be pulling in that way. So chin drawn in, pull down and back up. So that's going to be the warm-up. Again, you'll find all of this on the program card on the screens. As you kind of get through the sessions and start to see them over 2 or 3 weeks, it'll all start to make a little more sense. For today, we have a kettlebell deadlift, a dumbbell floor press and a hollow hold. So kettlebell deadlifts, there should be a couple of options of kettlebells on each of the platforms. Again, there's more down in the back corner along the wall, so you can get some different options there if need be, particularly if you need any heavier ones. And we're going to have kettlebell deadlift. It's best to set this up on the rubber part of the platforms rather than on the timber. It'll just be a little bit kind of gentler when you're putting it back down. And it'll also, in the setup for today, will leave you plenty of space for your floor press in the middle. So yeah, we've got 45 seconds work, 15 seconds rest. Kettlebell deadlift, I'll show you first. So feet are just going to go either side of the kettlebell. Hips are going to slide all the way back. Just make sure you can see this. Hips slide all the way back, and we want to keep the back of the armpits tight so we're not getting stretched over. So it should be nice and long, chest and shoulders open for the kettlebell deadlifts. So feet slide, or hips slide back, feet just either side of the kettlebell. Pushing into the floor with the knees to start the movement and hips coming through at the top to finish. There's 2 options now with the kettlebell that we can do. If you can manage, the preferred option is to slide the hips back to start and then let the knees bend and bring the kettlebell back down for a gentle touch on the floor before standing back up again. If you're finding that as you go down past the kind of shins or mid shins, that the position gets dragged out of you a little bit, it's best just to stick doing a kind of kettlebell stiff leg deadlift. So hips sitting back, kettlebell just gets about mid shin and then standing back up from there. Again, your coach will be able to advise you on the best option for you in the sessions themselves. Dumbbell floor press, we can get a pair of dumbbells for this, or we can do it with a single dumbbell if you want to kind of alternate the loading a little bit. So you might have an option of doing it with maybe a 7.5 across. Like instead of doing 2.5 in each hand would be 5, we could do a 7.5 across both hands, which would be slightly less if we needed. Equally, we can take 12.5 rather than 5 in each hand, and so on and so forth. But default option would be one dumbbell in each hand. We can leave them to the side, is probably the best for getting set up with them. So you can get yourself set on the floor, take the dumbbells into the hand from there, lay them back, and they move the exact same way as the dumbbell bench does from here. Lowering down and pressing back up. The hands can be either at 45 degrees or palms facing in. In either case, elbows just gently, or back of the arms rather than the elbows makes a touch with the floor, and we're lowering down there. So like say 45 degrees or palms facing, whichever your preference is. Best thing then again, lowering down and just sitting to the sides is to get them unloaded. And then for our last one, hollow holds. The start position is going to be laying on the floor again. Feet go flat on the floor to start. We're going to brace the ribs and tuck the hips under. Hands come up and you're going to reach up to the ceiling, and then you're going to lift the feet up and holding. So our base position is going to be shoulders over, hands over shoulders, knees over hips. From there we can open out right the way as far as just floating off the floor for our hands and feet, and anywhere in between. So obviously the wider out we go, the harder it'll be. The closer we are to this, the more manageable it will be. The main thing to focus on is where you can maintain that brace against the floor and keeping the lower back pressed in. If as you start to open out, you're starting to have the hips stride forward and the lower back lifts off, we need to bring it back in a little bit and just manage with wherever we can and keep that contact with the floor on the lower back. So that's it. That's it. 45 seconds of work, 15 seconds rest for each of those movements to change around. So kettlebell set up on the rubber, and then we can do the floor press and the hollow holds on the timber here. And there is jigsaw mats available down the end of the gym, or we might throw them out on the platforms for those days. So you should be all set with those.